Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Excited to be here today. Happy, I think we're Tuesday, right? I got to be honest with you guys. It runs together. A 7-day-a-week work schedule makes it really it really doesn't matter what day it is. It's just another day, right? But another day to fight bad guys and to talk about corruption and to try and do what we can to save the future for our children. And we're going to be talking about our children today. I got to tell you guys, this is a really important show. We've got a story that you need to hear. Child Protective Services has a lot of good people that really care about kids, but the corruption in our CPS system in every state in America, I've not found one, is mind-blowing. What's happened over the years is CPS has so many laws protecting what they do, and the laws were passed under the guise of making sure that we're maximizing protection for kids, which we want, right? We all want to protect kids, and we want to make sure that good agents who do good things are empowered to do what they need to do. The problem is, the laws have gone too far, and now there's no transparency in CPS, and there's no accountability. And when CPS has bad actors, we're in trouble. And in a lot of these left-wing states, they have very, very bad actors. But it's not just bad in the left-wing states. Today, we're going to be talking about Oklahoma. Oklahoma is literally the reddest state in the union. It's a phenomenal, 100% MAGA, wonderful, wonderful state. The people of Oklahoma are some of the best people in this country. You ever want to find God family country, go to Oklahoma. I'm going to tell you, I've been to all over this country, and Oklahoma is God family country capital, right? I mean, it just is. But that's the people. Unfortunately, though, not everybody's good. And in Oklahoma, we see one of the more corrupt Child Protective Services entities in the country. It's really bad. We talked a few months ago about a young man Preston, who was medically kidnapped by CPS. And they basically are trying to poison this kid with unsafe and ineffective treatments. It's a horrible, horrible story, taking this kid from their mother. And today, we're going to be talking about another story. Just when you think it can't get worse, it does. It's unbelievable. CPS You know what? You're just going to need to listen. It's really a phenomenal story. I've got my new friend Katy here, who's got just a remarkable story to tell on this, and you definitely. I want you guys to be ready to support her and to back her in her work to fight this stuff. Oklahoma. I love you guys. You know I love you. We got the Freedom Brigades. We got charity. We do all the things we do down there. We've got to do better in this state. We've got to do better. If we can't save Oklahoma, there's not a state in this union that has a chance. You guys have the best GOP leader in this country in Charity Lynch. You guys are remaking that state. You're getting rid of the rhinos. We've got a lot more to do, and we've got to start with protecting the kids. And if one state in this union is going to get it, it's Oklahoma. But wherever you're at, you need to hear this story because this is endemic. It's not just Oklahoma, it's happening around the country. And this story is just another canary in the coal mine. It's just another one. So please, I'm urging you to make sure you're sharing the show. Click share, click like, get this out there. Get it out there. Help us get the truth out about this. We've got to protect our kids. We absolutely have to. Before we get into that, interesting. Guess who's blackpilling? Because we know those evil black pillars. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with this. But apparently Donald Trump is blackpilling. Because listen, if you question Susie Wiles or Pam Bondi or the DOJ, if you're pushing for prosecutions rather than talk, that makes you a black pillar, according to the Black Pill Brigade out there, which are just a bunch of sellouts that are trying to divide MAGA before the election. They don't like us pushing for MAGA initiatives. But these black pill sellouts, I don't know what they're going to do, because according to a Wall Street Journal article, Donald Trump has been complaining loudly about Pam Bondi and the fact that she's weak and ineffective. Now, you may say, well, that's the Wall Street Journal. They're full of crap, right? Well, maybe, except for Donald Trump has literally tweeted it. How many tweets has he put out saying, Bondi, we need something to happen. We need to do something. And nothing happens. Nothing happens. We got one grand jury impaneled in Florida, and that's it in this entire country. And it's a grand jury. It's impaneled. We don't know that there's going to be a case. We don't know that there's going to be a good case. We don't know what's going to happen. But a whole lot of nothing, right? Meanwhile, the same DOJ has 5,000 of its agents were working on J6, and they fired fewer than 150. So, I'm not holding my breath on anything coming from this DOJ until they fire Bondi and Wiles. Anyways, that we got all sorts of other things happening, but I want to keep the focus, especially. Oh, we got some interesting stuff on the cancer meat, right? The lab grown meat that they're trying to sell as, I don't know, chicken or beef or it's just disgusting. It's repulsive. Literally meets the definition. Okay, if you follow me, you know that this isn't actually meat. It's lab grown cancer. That's made from different animal cells, and it's disgusting and repulsive, and ugh. I would sooner starve than eat this stuff, but it's here. It's here. So we're going to get into some of that as well, but I want to start and really focus on the kids, because, I would think that we could come together and agree that protecting children and doing right by children is everything. And that's really where we need to look. So before I do, Tom Wren, make sure you're supporting us. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw, www.givesendgo/RensLaw. We need your support, whatever you can give us. This, we don't care. I'm not playing this uniparty game of Democrats versus Republicans. Obviously, we've got to beat the Democrats. 100% of them are corrupt, but so are about 75% of Republicans. So we have to beat everybody that's corrupt. And what we're going to do is continue telling the truth. If you support me, you're supporting truth, right? Because what we're going to do is look at what's actually happening. And I don't care if you get a D or an R. If you're a crooked loser, we're coming after you, because we believe in truth here and we believe in integrity. And we're not going to sell out because a couple clowns here and there decide that they're going to do something big. So, or be grumpy because we're interfering with their plans to undermine the principles that we believe in. MAGA, making America great again, which you can't do without telling the truth and fighting for truth. So support us. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw. Your support keeps us fighting. Also, go to TimeRents.com, www.timerents.com, and check out our shop and our sponsors and affiliates especially. And as always, I want to remind you about the war on testosterone. It's real. And right there at the top, you see men's hormone support from Global Healing. All the link to Global Healing is good. Anything you buy from Global Healing is wonderful. Global Healing is a wonderful partner, best stuff on the market. But men's hormone support will help you. Make sure you're a man, right? Make sure that you've got healthy hormone levels. Get rid of the brain fog, the sleepiness, the tiredness. Make you a little stronger, a little more pep in your step. A lot of good things. Men hormone support really, really helps you a lot. You want to use this stuff. I started out at about six droppers a day. Eventually dropped down to 4, and then sometimes between 2 to 4. Recommended is 2. I get a lot more out if I use a little bit more, so I recommend you do. But men's hormone support from Global Healing, wonderful product. And then an associated product, Make. You want to use our link here for Make Wellness. Stack these oral peptides. All natural oral peptides, good stuff, wonderful stuff. But today I want to highlight my partners. We got to scroll down a little bit. We got so many good partners at this point. Where the heck are they? They keep going. Look at all these partners. Look what we've done. We've actually done some really good things. But our partners at Earth Harmony, right? They're in here somewhere. And Earth Harmony, oh, there they are. They're way up at the top. I almost missed them. Use RENS 10. Go to Earth Harmony. They have a brand new methylene blue product that I really like. It's actually capsules. So if you don't want to, you do the ethylene blue, it makes your whole mouth, you look like a Smurf. Your whole mouth turns blue. Nobody wants to look like a Smurf. But they've got a new capsulized form of this. You can take it, and you don't have Smurf mouth. And we don't want Smurf mouth. Who wants that, right? So you get a new capsule, methylene blue. It's a great product. Use RENS 10. Most of these are checkout code RENS. Use RENS 10 and you get 10% off at Earth Harmony. They've got a lot of good products. They're a wonderful, wonderful brand. They're related to the Global Healing products, so they're good group. I love Earth Harmony, and if you want your methylene blue, they are wonderful. They've got some unique product lines there, some good stuff. Use RENS 10 to get the discount, and check out the methylene blue capsules because. I just don't like the Smurf mouth. I like the capsule thing a lot better. So, all right. Let's move on and let's get to the show because we got some really big stuff. I want us just start out. I want to bring my friend Katy on. Katy is a warrior. Ben, bring her on in if you can. She's a warrior fighting for kids and for truth in Child Protective Services. So here we have her. Katy, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me here to talk about this case.
Well, this is remarkable to me. I got to be honest with you. Um, you would think after doing as much of this stuff as I have, that I would be, to the point where I'm just like, it's just another, but I'm not. I keep hearing these things and I'm shocked and appalled every time I hear these things. They're disgusting. And we've got this nice little this article here that you've got V1SUT. And by the way, everybody support V1SUT. They're fighting for our kids. You've got this article, Ben. If you can throw this up, because the graphic on this is really kind of telling, right? So the title of this article: "Sacrificing Lincoln." Oklahoma Department of Human Services, that's OKDHS, traffics boys, harbors, aids male adoptees after multiple molestations and attempt to drown a child. And here you've got a wonderful picture of, just some disturbing, horrific things. What am I looking at here, Katy? Give us a little background on this. What's the story here? This looks disturbing.
Well, I became involved with this in March of 2024. So I've been on this story we're coming up on 2 years. If you're looking at that photo of the two men with the small child in between them, the man on the left was arrested in 2010 in Parsons, Kansas, a small little county in southeast Kansas, for crimes against children. So he should have been ineligible to ever foster a child or adopt a child. But
Yes.
that arrest was covered up, and it's taken me, again, a year and a half to find sources to be able to tell you what happened there. But I became involved in March of 2024 when that gentleman, who was at the time an Oklahoma sixth grade teacher in a suburban district called Moore Public Schools outside of Oklahoma City,
So he
and
was. Let me interrupt, and I'm going to do this a lot. I'm sorry,
you do
but
it.
yeah, I want. So this guy who was convicted of crimes against children, which usually means rape, molestation, things like that, was you found him as a sixth grade teacher. So after being
Mhm.
convicted, not accused, but convicted.
Not accused, not convicted, arrested.
Oh,
So,
arrested. Okay,
yes.
so arrested for crimes
Mhm.
against children. He was still able to go and get a job as a teacher for sixth grade boys.
He was, and I became notified about him, my first notification about him, when a group of parents at the elementary school where he was teaching reached out to me. I do a lot of investigative reporting about the cover up of pedophiles within public schools, and they reached out and said, this man had to step down out of the classroom. He's being paid to stay at home, and no tell us why. Our children have been in that classroom. He had been there 2 years, so he has a lot of kids were exposed to him, and they won't tell us why. So I began to dig in. And what I'm going to do, because there's a lot of back and forth, is just to start at a timeline so your readers can understand what's really happened here. In 2010, he was arrested, and I found a posting within the local newspaper called the Parson Sun. And it talked about how this gentleman, his name's Solon Harrison, who was 22, was arrested on 2 counts of sodomizing a child, 2 counts of taking indecent liberties with a child, and 2 counts of furnishing alcohol to a minor. It took me over a year, but I finally found a local source who could tell me what happened. Open records requests to local law enforcement, to the court there, to all the way up to the Attorney General's office in Kansas. They were obfuscating. They would not tell me anything. They were breaking the law and not filling my open records request. But this local source, who I can confirm understood what was going on in this town at the time, said that Solon Harrison was a counselor at a church camp, and that this rape of this child twice allegedly took place at that camp.
But he
Um,
wasn't prosecuted.
he was either not prosecuted or this crime was expunged, which it shouldn't be. Sex crimes against children are almost always ineligible for expungement, but I've seen them. I've reported on that courts, progressive courts, expunge these things so that these folks can adopt children, those kind of things. I've seen it and I've reported on it. So I can't tell you which one it is, but I can tell you that he was arrested, and he was arrested in April of 2010.
Okay, so we know that. I want to make sure people are hearing this. So one of two things is true, and Katy has confirmed with local sources that he was arrested.
Yes.
And you listen, when you see, this is my experience as a lawyer, right? When you see arrested on very specific charges, 2 counts of sodomizing a child, 2 counts of indecent liberties with a child, 2 counts of furnishing alcohol to a minor. Those are very specific charges. You don't get an arrest on those charges without evidence, right? Those are you may get, if it was just indecent liberties, that might be kind of a catch-all. We think something's there, and we think we got enough evidence, but so to me, the question about expungement is a very, very real question, because you don't typically see that kind of an arrest unless there's, I mean, someone's talking about something. There's some specific details. You don't get specific counts like that unless someone's talking.
Correct. I would agree with that assessment. And I will tell you, to give you some context, in April of 2010, just 100 miles southeast of there at Camp Kanakuk, I don't know if you're familiar with the child sexual abuse scandal that came out of there. The executive director of that camp was being sentenced for crimes against boys. Now, we cannot tell, this source was not able to tell me exactly which Christian camp it was at that this person, Solon Harrison, allegedly committed these crimes against a child. But that entire scandal was unfolding just 100 miles southeast. And in this town of Parsons, Kansas, the churches were known for taking children to Camp Kanakuk. So it is a huge possibility that these two scandals are intermeshed. But I will tell you that his family of origin, this perpetrator's family of origin, was very involved in the church. His mother ran and she still does, an NGO called See Local Global that encourages people to raise mission-minded children who are involved in local missions. And my source told me there was huge pressure for them to cover up her son's arrest, and that they decided they were going to not believe this child who had come forward about being raped twice. So a few months later, this gentleman married a young woman just for a few months. And my source said that that was basically a cover up. That did not work out. During the same time frame, he was an adult, started a relationship with a teenager in a local group home who would then become his spouse. He ended up marrying this boy when he was still a teenager. Okay. So that's the other man you saw in the picture where they're both kissing the young boy on the cheek. So these men were then married in 2013. So we have a couple of layers of potential victims here. They moved to Texas for a while, followed that gentleman, the perpetrator's family, to Texas. The family was involved with a couple of churches, and then they landed in Oklahoma in 2019. Almost immediately, they became foster parents within the DHS system, the child welfare system in Oklahoma. And neighbors report that they fostered only boys. I interviewed a permanency worker who told me they only wanted boys, and DHS didn't think this was any kind of flag, and that more than a half dozen boys moved through the household. And then that permanency worker, that child welfare services worker that I interviewed, who was on this case we're going to talk about, said that they became intolerant of the behaviors of the boys that were fostered in their house, and things weren't working out. So they requested, these two men, that a baby be placed with them who had never been in any other home. Shortly thereafter, a little boy was born. His name was Lincoln Lachman in December of 2020, and he was immediately placed with those gentlemen. In talking to the worker, she said she felt like they put it in order, the child welfare system filled the order, and the things we talk about next, despite all safety risks, the system would not look back and save this child.
Okay,
so the child, his parents, his biological parents,
after all of this, after all of these things that are happening, you got, arrests. You've got a guy who marries another dude who's still a teenager. And I understand, if the teenager was 18, well, he's of age. And so legally there's nothing you can do with that. And they can't look at this. But I mean, these aren't just red flags. These are just flaming, just look here, look here, look here things. I mean, someone should have been, kind of looking into this, one would think, right?
Agreed. There's according to this worker, there's such a progressive infiltration of the child welfare system inside the workers, the supervisors. Only those of the most progressive mindset are being promoted. And if you have more of a conservative mindset, or even one that says we have to follow the state law, we have to try to reunify these kids with their families, we have to look at safety risks no matter who we're talking about, whether they're same-sex couples or heterosexual couples, we don't compromise on child safety. She said that was going away. And so we have this new sort of progressive bureaucracy that is refusing to protect kids. They're not following the law. And in this case, we'll go through here in just a second, they broke the law in so many places, and there's almost no way to hold them accountable, which is part of the problem.
So according to your source in CPS, there was actually kind of maybe an unwritten order that you're supposed to look the other way when nefarious things are happening with a gay couple or some other deviant couple, but worse, but not with necessarily a traditional nuclear family.
Correct. I asked her point blank, was it kind of trendy to place babies with same-sex couples? And she said absolutely. And she, on this case in particular, And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. I want to take you through sort of the timeline because it gets very confusing. There's a lot happening here. Lincoln Lachman was born in December of 2020. Now, his mother had a history of, of drug abuse. And when she became pregnant with Lincoln, she immediately went to a doctor and said, I want my baby born healthy. And the doctor referred her to a program in Oklahoma called the STAR Clinic. Now, this is a taxpayer funded program that helps moms with any history of addiction when they find themselves pregnant, top level prenatal care, addiction therapy and counseling if that's needed. And they basically support them under the mandate, under law. Their purpose is to make sure that these kids are born healthy and are placed with their parents and supported. We're going to keep these families together. They're supposed to work with child welfare to maintain the child in the home. So this mom, and her name's Gardenia, her husband is Andrew, that's Lincoln's father. They sought out these services. She was clean. She was doing everything that she needed to do. And there was a plan in place with the Star Clinic to take to support them in the home after Lincoln was born. Well, it's the height of the COVID pandemic, and she goes into labor and she calls the hospital, which is OU Children's Hospital, where the Star Clinic is, and says, I'm getting ready to have the baby. And they said, you can't come here. The plan has to change. You need to go to a local hospital. We're beyond our COVID restrictions. So she goes to Norman Regional Hospital in Norman, Oklahoma, and has this child. And she's very honest on the intake. It says, have you ever had a history of addiction? And she said, yes, but I'm not addicted now. I'm with the Star Clinic. I'm working with them. So the hospital knew that. The baby was born, full term, healthy. All of the testing said neither baby nor mom have any drugs in their system. Even the umbilical cord, which is this longer term history of drug use for a child, nothing. There were no substances in him. Nevertheless, the hospital called Child Welfare Services.
For what reason?
No reason at all. I can't figure that out. They're sort of part of this system that is trafficking children within CPS. So CPS came out, and within a day of their healthy son being born, everything's going well. They got an emergency custody order based on active drug use from the court, and they took him away and gave him to these two men. That was absolutely untrue. They withheld all information about her treatment with the Star Clinic. They withheld all testing, which was already available. These parents worked with me once I discovered this man and this teacher and all of these things going on. They were so transparent. They gave me all of the logins to their medical information. I have all of the proof that this child should have never come into custody. They requested all of their court records. I can see that DHS lied. They never told the court that this child was healthy and there were no drugs involved. So now the child's in the system, and that's where the trouble starts. Getting a child out of the system once DHS has made its assessment is extremely difficult.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. There's no question about that. And, one of the things that's horrific, and we see this in the medical kidnapping side of things, but it doesn't really matter how they're trafficking the kids. If DHS wants to traffic them, they're going to do it. Yeah, the parents have no notice. They have no knowledge. They get these ex parte TROs claiming that it's for the child's protection. And the courts favor CPS tremendously in these hearings. And so what happens then is you'll get this child, your child is taken from you, and you've got 24 to 48 hours to find a lawyer that can actually argue it back, and it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to do. And so your child is then in custody of CPS for God knows how long, and there's really nothing you can do other than pray that you got a lawyer that's competent enough to fight the system, which is a real tough thing to do.
It's very tough. And these parents, when I was digging through all the court records, they had to request a public defender because they did not have the resources to be able to hire something. They requested a public defender 3 times. They had to go through the paperwork before they were given any representation. And that representation, as they said, and so many families tell me, that representation just goes along with what DHS said. I've witnessed, sat outside those doors because it's all covered in privacy. And I've witnessed those attorneys sticking their head out into the foyer as all these families wait for their DHS hearings and announce their name, looking for them, having never met them, But now they're going
Yeah.
to walk in and represent them in what is the most important legal proceeding of their lifetime, getting their child back.
Yeah.
It's really, the system is stacked against parents. So when we
Wow.
look at the different laws that DHS broke here, not only did they withhold information from the court, foster parents. So I will tell you, the process of becoming a foster parent involves not just a thorough application and background check, but also sort of this pre-application, these qualifying questions. And one of the questions is these two men had to sign off on was, have either of you ever been arrested? And if so, what for? And then there's a second question that says, have either of you ever been arrested or investigated for crimes against children? So somewhere there's an application that journalists and even the families whose children are taken are not allowed to look at to see, did DHS know that this man had a history of perpetration? Did he lie? Did his spouse lie and sign off on that form? Where's the legal culpability there? So they failed to vet this person for sure in more than one way. They also played a game with and did not tell the Lachmans, the biological family, who their child was placed with. So these men, instead of following the state law that says foster parents have to support the case goal of reuniting these children with the family, they have to supervise visitations as long as it's safe. They have to understand that these kids are to be going back home. Well, these two men said, nope. We don't want them to know anything about us. We don't want this family to know that their child is placed with two men. We don't want them to know our name, our location. And DHS went along with it for 6 months.
Well, on
When
what
the couple
basis?
finally, they just did. There's no basis. It's breaking the law. They just decided that that's what these men want. That's what we're going to do. So the permanency worker was told she could not inform the parents that their child was with the same-sex couple. Finally, when this permanency worker, she had so many concerns, and I did get to interview her over this case. She left the profession of child welfare, she left the agency, and she left the state.
Yeah.
She was so dismayed about how this family was treated and where the direction of the agency was going that she left. But she, at 6 months, finally told them, I have to tell you that your child, it was a discussion with mom when mom said, well, he's going to be calling somebody mom and dad, and I really don't want him calling somebody mama except for me. This family had been at every visitation. They had done everything that they needed to do, and she said that they're never going to call anybody mama because he's with two men. And the couple immediately objected based on their deep religious convictions. The worker asked to move the child. Her supervisors would not let her. And that's another thing in our state law. They're supposed to respect culture and religion of these families and to build that trust and to be able to help. And they did not. The worker was very concerned. She had glowing reports for the parents and their interactions with the child, but she had huge concerns about Lincoln in the home of these men. At one point at a visitation, mom was changing a diaper, and the diaper rash on this child was so bad that he needed medical attention. The worker called the men and said, you must take him to a doctor today. They said, no, it's no big deal. He always has that. And she said, absolutely not. To a doctor, you will have paperwork to me before the end of the day. She requested that the child be removed. Her supervisors again blocked her and said, you're not removing that child from this home.
This kid was clearly not being taken care of. I mean, clear at minimum, it was negligence. I mean, and in addition to that, I mean, they've broken how many laws? I mean, just to this point, the number of things. Now, I'm guessing, and I know I'm jumping out of order here of the story. I'm guessing because the family is a normal family and doesn't have the money, that they never did have the money to bring in the lawyers to sue CPS, because I'm just going to tell you guys, that's an expensive prospect. It's not an easy thing to do. It causes all sorts of troubles. Suing CPS is a tough one, and it is way, way, way out of the reach, particularly of the people who they target, because they don't target ultra wealthy individuals. They target people who they know can't afford to fight back. That's a dirty secret about this that I've kind of picked up on over time, but is a very, very true thing.
You're absolutely correct. And then once they have their child, they crush the family. They crush the
Yeah.
family. If you've had a history of addiction, they're going to drive you back there because this will be the most stressful experience of your life as your child is removed from you. One of
Yeah.
the other things they did that within our law, within 180 days, within 6 months, and that's way out. Let me tell you, I have experience in child welfare. These cases should be adjudicated in 30 or 60 days. Adjudication is basically the state proving that they've met the threshold, the legal definition of child abuse and neglect, and that this child should be a ward of the state. And that, if it doesn't happen by 180 days under Oklahoma law, that child is no longer in DHS's custody. It's back in the parent's custody. It's this ultimate safeguard to say, if the system gets out of whack, it ends. It ends. It's over.
Yeah.
This kid goes home. Well, it didn't happen after 180 days. So this very good permanency worker printed that out. She's being blocked from helping this child, gave it to the parents and said, it was over 180 days at a visitation. This child is back in your custody. No matter what they say, this is the law. So the parents did not want to give the child back from the visitation. And a standoff ensued. So there was local police where the men live. There was DHS. Everybody was on the phone. The parents were asserting their rights without any legal representation. And DHS came back and said, nope, we've obtained a second emergency custody order. We get to keep him in custody even though it's past the 180 days. I have every court record now, everything that happened in court, and there is no second emergency custody order. I believe that they lied about that entire thing to keep that child in fake custody and to keep him with these men.
Wow. Wow. So is who in the state is looking into this, and what accountability? I mean, is anybody doing anything? I mean, you're speaking about this, but is anybody, your state OIG, is your state AG, is anybody doing anything? Do they care?
No, we have a handful of legislators in our Freedom Caucus. And I know you're familiar with Shane Jett. He's been on your
He's a
program
great
before.
guy. I
He's a
like
senator
Shane.
in Oklahoma. He is fighting. We have a whole handful of others, and they're all from the Freedom Caucus, who are fighting behind the scenes. But in Oklahoma, reddest state in the union, all of the leadership, essentially the people with power in our state legislature, are fakes.
Yeah.
They're what Senator Jett calls trans Republicans. They
Yeah,
identify
I
as
love that.
Republicans, but they're not.
Yeah.
And they are the chairs of the committees, like our HHS, our Health and Human Services Committee, is chaired by a senator, a Republican senator named Paul Racino. His campaign war chest is filled by lobbyists from all the agencies he's supposed to be overseeing as the chair of that committee. So it is very difficult to get legislation through that would reform any of this because we have folks who are taking the money and not looking out for kids. There's a couple of systems that are supposed to be. We have this OCCY. It's a panel that's supposed to be looking into all of this. It's really just a collection of the directors of all those big agencies that need the oversight on this commission. So it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just an expansion of government that accomplished nothing and isn't keeping kids safe at all. But the number of laws broken in this, we're just going to work really hard to make this a national story because this is unprecedented. I have never run into, we'll keep going. We're not even close to where this story goes. Another thing that they did was you're mandated under Oklahoma law, DHS must make all reasonable efforts to keep a child who in foster care with relatives. So grandma, aunt, uncle, whoever, a kinship placement. I interviewed the paternal aunt and uncle of Lincoln Lachman, father's brother and sister-in-law, a totally viable placement in every way, 3 healthy kids of their own, the financial means to take Lincoln in. They hid them from the court. They made every effort to get this child from DHS, and DHS just kept cutting off the communication to the extent that they actually ended up calling into the child and abuse and neglect hotline instead of to the workers in the office that's supposed to be handling this to try and get the conversation started again because they wanted to take Lincoln. In the court reports, DHS said, oh, we've been making all reasonable efforts to find kin every single time they stepped up. And they completely hid this couple who was willing to take him, his aunt and uncle. That is
So you've got
egregiously
these
against the
records.
law.
You've
I
got
do. I
these
have the
records.
emails. I
Where
do.
let's we need to have a conversation, and we need to have a little conversation with the Attorney General of Oklahoma and ask why he's allowing Child Protective Services to perjure themselves at the expense of parents for a gay couple that is, has a questionable past at best, and and more. We're going to get to the more here in a second. This is absurd. Let's jump ahead because this isn't
Okay.
the only thing he's done, right? The rest wasn't the
No.
only thing. So I want to, and we got to keep moving on this. I'm just for timing's
Okay.
sake, and I'm going to have you back to talk about this more, and we're going to do more on this. But
Okay.
for timing's sake, let's jump ahead. This the rest for child endangerment and abuse and whatever it was isn't the only thing this guy's done. There's others.
No.
Make sure, I want
The
everybody to hear
reason,
this guy.
correct.
I want you guys to hear what this guy did. It's not just this one arrest. This guy is well, let's get going here. Let's talk about it.
Okay,
Can you hear us,
so
Katie?
he was asked to step down from his teaching job in Oklahoma in March of 2024. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right.
Can you hear me?
Apparently, we got a little bit of a delay in the
Oh,
sound.
okay.
Oh
Are we
man, this
better
is
now?
no good. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh-oh,
Hopefully you can hear me now. I
we,
don't know what just happened.
yeah.
I'm
Um,
not sure what just
all right,
happened.
Ben.
Can you
Hey,
hear me?
Ben. Let's see if we can get Katie to reconnect here, because this is really,
Okay.
really important, and I want to get the rest of the story out. See if we can get the connection fixed up because we need to hit this next part, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this while we're trying to get that corrected, because this is so important. And folks, here's what's going on. So this child is put in with this couple, and we're going to get Kate. We're going to see if Katie can log out and back in and get her connection fixed because
Am I better now?
it's Ben. Will you check and see if that's working for us and do whatever you need to behind the backstage there. So here's what we've got to talk about.
Got it.
So this child gets put with this gay couple, and one half of this gay couple is a guy who was arrested for a number of child welfare issues, and the DHS, Oklahoma DHS, the Child Services, keeps lying and manipulating and going through this, and they're doing whatever they can to keep this kid with this couple, despite the fact that they were very clearly and openly breaking numerous laws, right? So they're keeping this kid at risk and keeping this kid in a dangerous spot, and the family's fighting, right? The family's doing everything they can do to get things going. And I think we got Katie back. Let's see.
Yes.
See, Ben, if we can get Katie back here. Can you hear us now, Katie? How's the connection?
Yep, I can hear you. I have no idea what just happened, but I'm back.
Perfect.
Sometimes the enemy interjects, right, when you're getting to things he doesn't want you to say.
Well, it is. So tell us about this gay guy that apparently has an affinity towards kids. Tell us what else he did, because the family's fighting to get their kid back, but then there's more.
Right. So in March of 2024, these men, along with Lincoln, who was now adopted after the parents were pressured into terminating their rights, it's a whole different legal story. And while they're on this cruise ship, the older gentleman it's in the evening and he's up on the top deck. It took me about a year to find the families that were affected by this. And actually in the article, I show a video. Some children were videotaping him because he was so drunk that he was sort of falling all about the deck, and they thought that it was funny. Well, they ended up in the hot tub with this man, along with little Lincoln, who was 3 years old. So this man's supervising young Lincoln in the hot tub. And he begins to try to drown Lincoln. He was holding the child, according to all of these children that were in the hot tub, underneath the water for what they described as over a minute at a time. And the child's coming up and screaming and gasping. And a woman that I haven't been able to find came over, jumped in the hot tub. She's described as just another passenger, a blonde woman, and she strikes this man as hard as she can, and she grabs the child and saves his life. So
Thank
this
God.
man, there are multiple witnesses, and all of the children's testimony corroborated the same thing, that he tried to drown this child. Well, slightly before that, when they'd been in the hot tub, this man started befriending them before the drowning and asked all of the children where they lived, where they went to school. He said he was a sixth grade teacher. So they thought he was sort of a funny drunk guy, and they didn't know that he was a dangerous person. Well, after the drowning and the child is saved, he begins to try to molest children in the hot tub, particularly the boys. All these children were traveling together in a group of about 40. So they all knew each other. They were all between, the youngest was 10 and the oldest, they were all up to teens. And so two really brave boys sort of distracted him as he was not letting the kids leave the hot tub. They got the girls out first, and then one by one started trying to help others escape from the hot tub. He molested several of them. The last boy, a brave little 11-year-old, he grabbed him by the shoulders and he said, "Not you, little boy, you're staying with me." And that boy took the brunt of the molestation. He molested him through his clothing and then up his swim shorts, was physical with him until the boy finally was able to escape the hot tub, and some help finally came in the form of cruise security. So I interviewed several parents in that group that were involved with this. The cruise ship tried to cover the entire thing up. There's no
Of
evidence
course.
that anyone gave any medical attention to Lincoln after the attempted drowning. The cruise ship told them, interviewed all the children, security, and said they were going to post a guard outside these men's door, and that they would contact the FBI and that he would be arrested. What actually happened is the next morning, they held all of these families involved on board and said they needed to be interviewed again as they let the men off the ship in Cozumel with young Lincoln. They never reboarded the ship. No one knows how they got back to the United States. And those concerned families continued to just haze the cruise personnel about this through the rest of the trip. They wanted to know what happened. They wanted to know if he'd been arrested. They wanted to know how justice would be served for their kids and who was looking out for this little boy. When they landed, they were assured the FBI was contacted, and then eventually, out of frustration, a cruise ship personnel told them, once they got off in Cozumel, it's not our problem. So as soon as these families got back to Galveston, Texas, where they had embarked from, before they even got their cars, they called the FBI. And the Carnival Cruise Lines, this was the Carnival Dream they were on, had never notified authorities about everything that happened on the ship. And they did nothing to protect Lincoln.
So Carnival Cruise Lines covers up an attempted drowning and child molestation on a massive scale. So they, well, you know what? Let's make sure everybody knows that Carnival Cruise Lines did that. I mean, that's a very, very important point.
And there's a log where cruise lines are supposed to report incidents that happen on the ship, whether it's someone falling off the ship or some kind of a crime. This does not appear on that log anywhere, so they did not report it to the proper authorities in any way. The good thing is the families report to me that the FBI immediately engaged after the families contacted them. They interviewed all of their children within 3 days. They were right on this. They informed the school district about what was going on, which is why he had to step down. And they also informed DHS in Oklahoma, because lawfully there was a child at risk. They needed to do that. They informed them about what happened. And lo and behold, no one removed Lincoln from that home. DHS did not step in. There were multiple referrals on top of what the FBI told them of concern for Lincoln, and they screened them all out. I know I was one of those referrals. When I found out about this, I'm a mandated reporter. I know a child's at risk of harm. And they screened out my referral. The biological parents reported, they screened theirs out and did not investigate it. So from there, an indictment about 3 months later, the FBI indicted this man federally on charges of molestation. 9 days after the indictment, that man, as the FBI was moving in to arrest him in Moore at the home he continued to share with his spouse and with Lincoln, he shot himself and killed himself. Still, DHS did not step in and take this child out of the home.
Oh my
Um,
God! So so despite this all, the kid still was with this
mhm.
perverted, sick crew of nutbags.
He was, and now continues to be with the other adopted father, the younger one that I told you about that lived in the group home in Kansas. So that man, his name's Ryan Harrison, put up a GoFundMe, said, I got to get out of the state. He said he had financial and mental health issues. Can people please donate? A foster care worker in that county, who's likely the one that placed boys in that home, donated to that GoFundMe. Instead of investigating it, they turned the narrative around as though somehow these men were the victims, and this was something where we have to dig in on the issue of suicide, not protecting children. So this man fled the state. He's in Kansas now with this child. He ran to the family, his husband's family. They're in Wichita, and there's nothing that these parents can do to get their child back right now. He
This is
continues to be at risk. And let me
this
tell you
is
about his biological parents. They resurrected themselves from the ashes. They really fought the hard fight and came back as a couple. They have Lincoln's full biological little brother who's 9 months old. I've been in their home. They're incredible parents. They have a healthy, happy little boy, and they have no recourse to be able to get their child back. The mother described it to me as the nightmare that never ends. They gave her child to perpetrators, and this couple needs help.
yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, that's remarkable. And the problem is with this. I mean, there's so many problems. But I mean, the thing about this is that the legal cost to even begin to attempt to do something like this are astronomical. I mean, and in fairness to the lawyers, because I mean, everybody, they're lawyers. I'm a lawyer. The fairness to the lawyers. This is the kind of thing that this is the kind of case that would take God knows how long. It's a very uphill battle. It's very, very difficult. Under the law, once that adoption is complete, the parental rights have changed. I mean, it's done, right? And undoing that, I got to be honest with you, I don't know how I would approach that as an attorney. Now, this isn't my area of specialty, but just from kind of just an overview, I don't know as an attorney what I would even be able to do. I mean, you'd have to be able to argue or show that the whole proceeding was fraudulent and somehow invalid to have any chance of overturning that. But that as a task would be monumentally difficult and expensive as an attorney. And I know, so everybody watching thinking, but this is common sense, right? It shouldn't be a problem. But understand that the way that the courts are structured, the rules are structured, the presumptions of evidentiary standards, all these different things, this is not an easy thing to fix under the law, because the law would assume that once an adoption is complete, that it was done properly, it was already sanctioned by a court. Getting a court to relook at matters of fact, and this would be a monumental job. So I mean, basically, the corruption in Oklahoma Child Protective Services has led to a child growing up in a home where, I mean, at least one of the people was a pervert, and I mean, I got to say, kid's probably better off with this guy dead, but it's still, I mean, this whole thing is a nightmare beyond words, and wow, just wow.
Even more shocking is that in Kansas, so referrals were made to Kansas because this child was taken over state lines. With the laws broken, the FBI should be involved in this case. And then referrals made to Kansas's DCF, which is their child welfare system. They also screen them out. So we're seeing some state-to-state agency internal protection.
Yeah.
So the last picture that this adoptive father who still has this child posted, it's all the way down the bottom of the article. The last picture that he posted in social media, which I'm not sure, up a little bit right there. I don't know if it was supposed to show that he's doing a great job with him, but when you zoom in, the child has a bruise all the way around part of his neck right here.
I mean, I'm not going to say that's strangulation, but it sure does beg the question.
Well, let me say, this is over a year. This picture is over a year after the other man died. So to say there isn't reason to believe this child might be at harm and that Kansas should be opening that investigation, that's not valid.
No.
I think the legal recourse in this is a move, talking to some folks here, to vacate the termination of rights. Let me tell you the nasty trick that is used on so many families. So after they crush this family, they take their child illegally, they break all of these laws, they make it very clear that these parents are powerless in the system. They move to terminate their rights, and what they tell them is, if you don't sign over and relinquish your rights, you can never keep another future child in Oklahoma. That is not what the law says. Title 10A in Oklahoma, it's absurd. Let me tell you, it happens all the time.
It's coercion.
It is coercion. So we start to layer on all these things that happen to this family. There's a real fight here. If you can write this case, if someone can write this case, this will open the door for hundreds of families who have experienced even a part of what happened in this case.
Well, I mean, we need to fight. There needs to be a fight for this. I mean, I hope. Do you guys have anybody fighting? I mean, is there any hope on this? Do you have people involved? What's happening, and how can we support it? Because we're coming up to the end of the show.
These parents need legal representation. They need somebody on the ground here. They need for this to be a national story and for the public pressure to be so great that our legislators, the powerful and the fakes, need to step up and do something about it. It needs to become such a big issue that it moves elections. We have state elections in 2026. We have primaries coming up in June. Everything happens in Oklahoma in the Republican primaries. That's where we separate the rhinos from the real people servants. And this needs to be a number one issue. It's where we elect our governor, lieutenant governor, state superintendent of education, attorney general. Those people all need to be forced to speak out about where they stand on child welfare. Lincoln Lachman is one of thousands. I am flooded with families who've been run over illegally by this system.
Well, listen, I look forward to working with you and to trying to help you to accomplish that mission, Katy. And
thank you.
We'll talk off air on it, and then we will have you back, and we'll talk more about this. If Red Oklahoma can't protect their kids, then there's no hope for this country. And I'm just going to be honest with you: if we can't protect our kids, our nation's lost. If we won't even fight for our children, we're lost, and we deserve it. We deserve to be lost. Our nation deserves whatever it gets. If we won't fight for children, then we're not worth our weight. That's just the way it is. So, Katy, thank you for joining us. Thanks, guys, for watching. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw. Don't forget to go to TomRens.com. Check out our partners, men's hormone support from Global Healing, and check out the new methyl blue capsules from Earth Harmony. Check out code RENS10. Thanks for being here. Make sure you get this out. We got to get the word out in Oklahoma. We'll be back very soon.
Thank you for watching the Tom Renz Show. Join us live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, putting an axe in the skull of tyranny.